Why does everything feel like it's falling apart? Denzel Washington leaned back in the worn-out armchair, his eyes fixed on Barron Trump, who sat across from him, tense and restless. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of a single desk lamp. It was a place for deep conversation, no distractions, just the rawness of reality. You ever feel like the more you try to do the right thing, the more everything around you starts falling apart? Denzel asked, his voice steady, as though he'd been through this many times before. Barron let out a long sigh and rubbed his forehead. He shifted in his seat, trying to find the right words. Yeah, lately I feel like I'm swimming against something invisible. Every time I push forward, something pushes back twice as hard. Why is that? He asked, his voice tinged with frustration, hoping for clarity. Denzel nodded slowly, as if he'd anticipated this question. Because when God is about to give you something big, the enemy sends everything it has to stop you. That's sign number one: increased opposition and challenges. The fiercest battles come right before the biggest breakthroughs, he explained, his eyes never leaving Barron's. Barron furrowed his brow, clearly confused by the notion. So, it's not punishment? He asked, his voice quieter now, almost hesitant. Denzel smiled gently, understanding the confusion. No, son, it's preparation, he replied, his tone calm and reassuring. Resistance reveals strength. Pressure reveals purpose. The fire doesn't come to burn you, it comes to shape you. Barron sat back in his chair, digesting the words. It made sense, but it still felt like too much. After a long pause, he asked, Then why do I feel like quitting? Denzel leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Because quitting is the loudest temptation right before destiny begins to whisper. And that whisper, you gotta train your soul to hear it, he said, his voice firm, but filled with warmth and wisdom. Barron didn't say anything at first. He just stared at the floor, processing. Then, almost as if he were speaking to himself, he muttered, I've lost a lot lately. Not just battles, people. Denzel's expression softened, and he nodded slowly. That's sign number 4. People start leaving your life. Not everyone is meant to go where you're headed. Some people are only written into the early chapters of your story, he explained, his voice deepening with each word. Barron looked up, his face filled with doubt. But what if those people mattered? What if they were the ones who helped me get this far? Denzel gave him a thoughtful look. They did matter. But sometimes God removes people not to harm you, but to make room for who you're becoming, he answered, his eyes filled with compassion. Barron exhaled deeply and looked out the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. And what about when doors shut? Things I thought I was meant to do, but then they just close? Is that another test? Denzel nodded, his expression serious. It's not just a test. It's sign number 2, doors closing unexpectedly. Sometimes rejection isn't a reflection of your worth, it's divine redirection. God's way of saying, not this way, there's something better for you. Barron took a deep breath, a sense of realization creeping into his heart. So, when things go wrong, I shouldn't take it as a sign that I'm failing? He asked, a glimmer of hope beginning to replace the confusion in his voice. Denzel chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. Exactly. It's when things are hard that God is working the most. Remember, Barron, sometimes rejection is just God's way of saying, not yet. Barron nodded slowly, his heart a little lighter. The conversation was far from over, but he felt like something inside him had shifted. For the first time in a while, he felt like he had a purpose, and that he realized was just the beginning. The silence in the room was heavy, and Barron couldn't shake the unease that had settled in his chest. His mind was racing with everything Denzel had shared so far. It all felt so overwhelming, yet somehow comforting in a strange way. He needed more understanding, more clarity. So what happens when I start feeling restless? Barron asked, his voice carrying a hint of anxiety as he looked up at Denzel, searching for more answers. Like when nothing feels right, and I can't put my finger on it. Denzel leaned forward slightly, his gaze steady and knowing. That's sign number 3, a deep sense of restlessness. God is stirring something inside of you for a reason. You might not know it yet, but something deep within you is yearning for more. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle between them before continuing. Restlessness is often the soul's way of telling you that there's more waiting for you. A bigger purpose is calling. Barron stared at him, trying to process what was being said. But how do I know if it's God calling or just me being impatient? He asked, his voice betraying his confusion. Denzel smiled kindly, a knowing look in his eyes. Impatience comes from a desire to control things that aren't meant to be controlled, son. But restlessness, it's different. It's a gentle nudge from within. The key is to listen and trust that it's guiding you somewhere new. Barron nodded slowly, the words sinking in. He could feel the pull of that restlessness in his own life. There had to be something more, something beyond what he had known so far. But what was it? What happens when the people around me just start leaving? Like when you think you have a circle and suddenly it feels smaller? Barron asked, his voice tinged with vulnerability. Denzel's expression softened. That's sign number 4. People start leaving your life. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay, Barron. Some are just there for a season. The challenge is learning to let go of what no longer serves you, even if it's painful. Barron's eyebrows knitted together, as if he was struggling with the idea. But what if they mattered? What if they helped me grow? Denzel exhaled deeply, his eyes locked onto Barron's with an intensity that seemed to go beyond words. They did matter, but you can't carry people who aren't meant to go with you. The path you're walking, the journey you're on, it's yours alone. God removes people sometimes because there's more room for those who are meant to help you fulfill your true calling. Barron looked away, his thoughts swirling. It wasn't easy, but maybe Denzel was right. Maybe it was time to trust the process, even when it didn't make sense. And what about when everything I think I know starts to feel uncertain? Like the opportunities I thought would come, they just don't. What do I do then? Barron asked, his voice lower now, full of introspection. Denzel nodded as if he had been waiting for this question. That's sign number 5, unusual confirmations. God will speak through unexpected people and situations. Sometimes when things feel most uncertain, that's when God's voice becomes the clearest. It's like a quiet whisper in the chaos, guiding you to the right place. Barron let the silence linger, thinking about how many times he had received signs but had brushed them off as coincidences. Maybe they weren't coincidences at all. Maybe they were God's way of getting his attention. Isn't it hard to trust that voice? Barron asked, his voice trembling slightly with the weight of the question. I mean, what if I'm hearing things wrong? Denzel's expression softened with compassion. Trusting that voice is hard, but it's the most important thing you can do. And sometimes you'll get it wrong, but that's the beauty of it. You'll learn and grow stronger with every step. Trust comes from listening, even when it's hard to hear. Barron took a deep breath, his mind filled with 1,000 thoughts. So when everything feels like it's falling apart, I just keep going? Denzel nodded, his eyes steady. Yes. Sign number 6. Your faith is tested like never before. A blessing always requires preparation. God tests your faith because he's preparing you for what's to come. The challenge is the gift. It strengthens you, builds you, and if you can hold on through the toughest times, the blessing will be worth it. Barron absorbed the words quietly, his heart heavy but hopeful. It was a lot to take in, but somehow it felt like the pieces were starting to fit together. And when the opportunities finally come, how will I know they're the right ones? Barron asked, almost as if speaking his deepest fear aloud. Denzel leaned back, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. That's sign number 7. Opportunities arrive unexpectedly. You have to be ready to step into your destiny, even when it doesn't look like what you expected. God will make a way, even when the path isn't clear. Barron nodded slowly, understanding that the unexpected wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace. He didn't have all the answers yet, but he felt like he was closer than before. The uncertainty didn't seem so frightening now. Denzel stood up, offering Barron a reassuring look. Remember, son, The road may seem rough, but the destination, your purpose, it's already set. You just have to trust the process. Barron stood up as well, feeling a sense of peace that he hadn't felt in a long time. I think I'm starting to understand, he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. The day was fading as Barron and Denzel stood by the window, looking out at the sunset. The last few hours had been filled with deep, challenging conversations. Barron felt like he was on the verge of something profound that he couldn't fully explain, but he knew it was there, just out of reach. How do you keep going, Denzel? Barron asked, his voice almost a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace that had settled in the room. When everything seems uncertain and you don't know where the next step is, how do you just keep pushing forward? Denzel turned toward him, his eyes filled with the wisdom that only years of experience could bring. That's when you remember the bigger picture, Barron. Life isn't just about the momentary struggles, the setbacks, or the things that seem impossible. It's about knowing that God has a plan for you. Sign number 6. Your faith is tested like never before is all about that faith. You hold on, even when you don't see the outcome, because God's plan is always better than anything you can imagine. Barron paused, thinking deeply. But what if I feel like I'm not enough? Like I can't handle all the tests? Denzel's face softened with empathy. Son, the test is not about you being enough. It's about you trusting that God is enough. When you feel weakest, that's when He's carrying you the most. Every test, every challenge is preparing you for the life that's ahead. Without the pressure, there's no diamond. Without the struggle, there's no strength. Barron exhaled deeply, his chest tight with emotion. I've never thought of it like that, he admitted, his voice quiet, almost humbled by the revelation. I guess it's hard to see the purpose when you're in the middle of it. Denzel nodded, his eyes never leaving Barron. That's the hardest part, believing when you can't see. But that's exactly where sign number 5 comes in. The unusual confirmations that we talked about earlier. God speaks to you through unexpected people and situations, even when you don't understand everything. And trust me, son, when those confirmations come, they'll be like little lights in the darkness, leading you one step closer to your purpose. Barron looked down, contemplating the weight of what Denzel had just said. So when I feel lost or like I'm going in the wrong direction, that's when I need to listen for those signs. Exactly, Denzel replied, his voice firm. The signs will come when you least expect them. You have to be open to the unexpected. You see, when God has something big in store for you, the journey isn't always straightforward. Sometimes the path seems unclear. But the one thing you can always count on is that God won't leave you to figure it out alone. Barron let the words sink in, feeling a strange sense of comfort settle in his chest. And when the opportunities come, how do I know they're the right ones? Barron asked again, a question he hadn't been able to shake. How do I know that I'm really ready? Denzel smiled, a hint of reassurance in his eyes. That's sign number 7, opportunities arrive unexpectedly. The right opportunities come when you're ready to step into them. It's not about being perfect, it's about being prepared. And readiness doesn't always look the way you think it should. Sometimes you're called to step out before you feel fully ready. You'll know it's the right opportunity because it aligns with your purpose, even if it doesn't look like you imagined. Barron felt his heart rate steady, his mind calming with every word Denzel spoke. So I need to trust that God is leading me, even when things don't make sense? Exactly, Denzel answered, his voice calm but strong. Trust the journey. Trust the process. God doesn't make mistakes, and neither do you. Just keep your faith, and the right doors will open at the right time. Don't be afraid of the unknown. It's in the unknown that God does His best work. Barron stood there for a moment, looking out at the horizon. The sun was dipping lower, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. It felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something big to happen. And for the first time in a long while, Barron felt like he was ready to step forward, ready to embrace whatever came next. Thank you, Denzel, Barron said, his voice full of gratitude. I think I finally get it. It's not about the setbacks or the challenges. It's about trusting that there's something bigger waiting for me and knowing that I don't have to walk it alone. Denzel smiled, placing a hand on Barron's shoulder. You've got this. You've always had it in you. Just keep your eyes open, your heart steady, and your faith strong. The rest will follow. Barron looked up, a new sense of purpose filling him. I'm ready, he said, his voice filled with quiet confidence. As they stood together in the fading light of the evening, both men knew that Barron was on the cusp of something profound. And while the path ahead would not always be easy, Barron now understood that every struggle, every challenge, was just a sign that his purpose was coming into focus. With faith and determination, he was ready to step into his destiny. In the silence of the moment, Barron realized that life wasn't about avoiding the struggles, the setbacks, or the moments of uncertainty. It was about trusting that each step, no matter how difficult, was guiding him towards something greater. It was about understanding that the signs weren't obstacles but markers along the way, each one a sign of divine direction, of a higher calling. Let's keep the conversation going. Subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts below. Your perspective is valuable and might inspire others.